Welcome to Future Ready Live, where we talk about topics that will help CPAs, CGMAs, and their organizations prepare to adapt and thrive in a fast-changing world. I'm your host, Tom Hood, the EVP of Business Engagement and Growth at the AICPA SEMA, the largest global body of professional certified accountants in the world. Today, we're going to be talking about insights from the Gartner Finance Conference 2025, just held in National Harbor, Maryland, with an attendance of 3,000 CFOs, controllers, and senior finance leaders over 2 days. That was followed by a joint Oracle SC&H Group EPM Summit in Reston, Virginia, which I was also honored to come and keynote at. And so here are the two folks responsible for that one. Maurice Claggett, CPA, he's a senior manager, solution engineering, EPM at Oracle. He's a strategic finance leader, a CPA, driving business growth through financial excellence. He has 20 years experience in the software industry. He's a certified public accountant, holds an MBA degree in finance and investments from the George Washington University in Washington, D.C. Maurice, say hello to our audience.
Hello, how is everyone doing today?
It's great to be here. Great to have you on the show. And then with him is Thomas Hood, Managing Director, Finance Transformation and Managed Services at SC&H Group. They're a CPA firm in Maryland, but doing national work. Thomas leads SC&H's finance transformation practice, where his mission is to help CFOs and finance teams create value and drive decision-making in their organizations. He's also a member of the AICPA SEMA Future of Finance Leadership Advisory Group. And oh, by the way, we are related. He is my oldest son. So Thomas, say hello to everybody.
Hey, everyone. Glad to be back on here, Dad, and glad to be on here with you, Maurice, here to talk about all the exciting things that we saw the other week here. So looking forward to it.
It was quite a conference. This could go on for quite a while, but let's just start. We're going to start, Maurice, with you first.
Okay.
Start with the biggest highlight from Gartner CFO and Finance Leader Conference, from the opening keynote about CFOs operating in a state of massive change and uncertainty. And then this Gartner said the need to shift from Guardian to Catalyst. What are your insights about that and throughout the conference? Favorite sessions?
That's a great question. I mean, there's so much content. There's so many connections that I made with folks out there. I would say that the general theme of just the consistency of the keynote and all the other case studies and sessions that were on display at the conference, having CFOs think about that transition or that blend of guardian of the finances, as well as guardians of value, as well as the catalyst of transformation. I got to talk to a lot of customers that came through the exhibit and, visit the Oracle booth. And whether there was transformation in their job title, or they're in some throes of a transformation project, in the middle or starting or looking at a phase 2, there was a lot of great conversations about how are they going to leverage AI. So if there are 2 words, I would say, the consistency of the message between the keynotes and the sessions, and then AI was, what are your AI capabilities? What are you guys doing in AI that was of interest to a lot of folks there?
Yeah, AI was all over the place for sure. And you're exactly right about that whole idea of going from Guardian to Catalyst. And I think Catalyst is a great name for the modern role of the CFO. That's what we've been seeing in our research. Thomas, how about you? What was some of your highlights or your favorite sessions?
Yes, definitely echo a lot of what Maurice said there. I think going off of that, some of the themes that came out of there, I think that really resonated with me was the opening keynote talked about having a disciplined approach to transformation. And that also aligned with, I can't recall which session it came out of, or it was from Alex Bant when he was recapping some of the stuff, but the notion that everything is trending everywhere all at once, which is really what has caused a lot of the challenges that finance teams and CFOs are facing, both from an external perspective with the regulatory environment, everything else going on, combined with how they're trying to address transformation inside their own organization.
Yeah.
I think, you go down into the sponsor hall at Gartner, right? And you see hundreds of vendors down there all saying they do a slightly different thing of the same thing, really. So for a CFO or someone who is in the throes of trying to figure out currency impacts, right, tariff impacts, all this stuff, then also trying to figure out how do I manage that, and then also try to get my systems in order to shift into that catalyst mode. I thought that was just an interesting kind of back and forth view of the current landscape that people are seeing versus really what you need to do to overcome that, which is you need to have a disciplined approach in your transformation. And that really all starts with what was also hit in the keynote, having a clear vision for your finance team that is bought into it, right? That knows what they're transforming to and why.
Yeah.
I think that will help drive, right, a lot of the other answers, which we'll go into in more detail here. But that's also a lot of the work that I know you've been doing, Dad, right, through all the future of finance, is trying to create that vision and get people to see where they're going.
Yeah. I mean, maybe just to sort of add to that, Tom, I mean, when you talk about that vision, it's really about helping people understand what AI is, what it is and what it isn't, and how folks are actually, looking to leverage. I always use the term when I talk to customers, that crawl, walk, run approach. Mm-hmm. I think there's that level of strategic, hey, we need to start doing things in AI because it's sort of, a popular term, or just things that we're all talking about in our business or personal lives. What does that really mean to an organization? How do you implement it if you have it? If you don't have it, where do you go to get it? And those are a lot of conversations that we had. But primarily, it's all about crawl, walk, run. What are you doing from a planning perspective, or closing the books, and then what tools you're using, and then what capabilities are there that can kind of get you off the ground slowly and get you walking and get you, lightning transformational speed with the current technologies.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with both of you on that notion. And, the other piece I thought was fascinating is I sat in on one session talking about the new skills for controllers and the digital controller. And it was fascinating because the controller effectively is being asked to step into what was the CFO role from not too long ago, right? It's much more broader remit. Obviously, it's got a lot more beyond just, it's back to beyond just Guardian. They are actually acting as business partners. And the idea of FP&A under the controller remit as things get automated is a trend that we're seeing. And then that goes all the way downstream into their GBSs or shared service centers. So it's fascinating to watch the whole train of finance, right, from the very basic entry-level people all the way up, beginning to upskill because of the need, because of automation, right? The great stuff that you're doing at Oracle and others are finally realizing what Gartner calls autonomous finance. We're getting closer to that utopia, so to speak. So kind of interesting, which that ties into the next question, which, Thomas, you did a session at the Oracle EPM Summit. Well, actually you did it at Gartner, the modern finance function, and you did some polling there. And that was consistent with what we've seen in our future of finance work. Top 3 issues facing finance leaders: need for new skills, Gen AI, and then accelerated digital transformation. So when you start thinking about that, what do you think's behind those priorities, Thomas, and how does that impact everybody? And then Maurice will let you weigh in on that.
Yeah, I think the way that we've been trying to help our clients and others think about AI and upskilling and all these trends that are really all interrelated to each other is there is really a finance tech stack that every finance group out there, every accounting group out there is operating off of, which is really, you can boil it down. I mean, right, there's tons of systems out there and source systems, all that stuff, but you can boil it down into really 3 key areas, which is you have your ERP and your source systems. So, right, Oracle Fusion Cloud. Then you have the EPM solutions. So this is Oracle EPM Cloud, budgeting and forecasting, close consolidation, tax provisioning, right? That whole suite of tools that has become the core tool in finance organizations for their jobs. And then in addition to that, you have all the data solutions around that support, augment, or enhance additional operational data and things like that. Going back to that initial challenge, right, of trying to navigate all these different solutions, that's where the upskilling piece comes into play in my mind. Within finance organizations, you typically already have the tools to enable AI in the form of your EPM solution that's likely already in your deployment. And this actually aligns with another trend that came out of the Gartner CFO conference, which is while there is a large market share or adoption rate of EPM solutions, budgeting and forecasting solutions in organizations, there is a renewed focus on those solutions to go deeper and wider in the organization. And that's something that we see at a lot of our clients, where they're looking at and renewing the focus on deploying a tool set that they already have and upskilling their resources, their finance resources, on being able to own those solutions and figure out how they can deploy them and use them better. And that goes all into the whole embedded AI notion that is coming to the ERP. Well, not coming. It's there, Maurice, right? Yeah. You guys already have that in there. And as we saw at the Reston event, it is there and it's very powerful. But you need to focus on your tech stack, in particular your ERP and your EPM solution, to get there. There's never going to be a turn on button, even if you have these solutions. It's going to take time for you to get the right level of data in there and the right discipline around it. But the AI capabilities that are coming into those solutions are very impressive, as we saw at Reston, and as we are deploying to our clients as well on the Oracle EPM platform. So we're pretty excited around those solutions coming out and just how it's really all coming together with these trends and the challenges that finance teams are facing.
Yeah. Maurice, how about you? What's your thoughts on all that?
No, I mean, just to sort of add to that, when we talk about transformation just broadly, I mean, there's this foundational level of unifying the data. And you mentioned that, Tom. I mean, you got to have good data in order for all the analytics and all these things to sort of work properly for it. So unifying that data across your metadata, chart of accounts, entity structures, how you reference, the data, that's one important piece of this. That's a foundational piece of this. I think when you start looking to upskill your talent, when you mentioned the rest of the event, that's exactly what we're doing. Just talking to financial analysts, controllers, folks that aren't, native to the IT world, and didn't come through the IT chain, very much business finance, and talking to them about how they can leverage the AI technologies and capabilities that already exist in their EPM, solution. Just today I was talking to a colleague that spoke to a customer that owns our EPM cloud platform, and they were able to turn on a functionality within our AI capabilities within our planning and forecasting, and had something up and going in less than 60 minutes.
Wow.
So again, it's from our perspective, Oracle's perspective, the AI capabilities are built within the platform, so there's no bolt-on. And what we do is, as quickly as you can come up with a use case, you yourselves can ideate and start, building out some sort of forecasting model, or leveraging our Gen AI capabilities with our narrative reporting capabilities to start providing context to your data, or finding anomalies in the data. With that, to bring it full circle with the skill sets is, hey, your finance folks got to do more than just debits and credits. They got to understand the business. They got to understand the planning processes, as you talked about it, sort of scaling upwards. It also scales across different business units. So the financial folks need to talk to the business unit teams and the marketing and the IT and all those folks, because everyone in the organization budgets in some form or fashion. So, if that's all on one platform, how great is it for you to sort of connect those pieces and then sort of get a fully loaded, fully burdened plan that, where everyone's input is accounted for. And you can do that with AI because you're taking those, those things like expense planning, or, certain line items that don't take much thought to create. You can, just sort of roll that out, leveraging our AI predictive capabilities. I think that was one of the, when we talk about great sessions, T. Rowe Price talked about how they're using it. And I believe that was one of their use cases, where they're focusing more of their, people efforts on the revenue side and using more of our predictive capabilities on the expense side.
Right. which is the whole point of finance, moving into more business partnering and working across the boundaries of the organization, right? To really, we like to say the CFO is kind of stepping up into the co-pilot seat of the engine, right next to the CEO, right? That's what we're starting to see more and more of. So that's kind of exciting. All right, so now let's talk. I think we really covered the finance tech stack right there. So I think let's talk about a bit. And Maurice, I think you covered a little bit about the Oracle's solution, how it's geared for the future. You want to do a little more in the AI functionality there and talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So again, when I talk about EPM, I think about it as very much a platform. So for those folks that may not be, familiar with it, we cover planning and budgeting, forecasting processes. We cover the sort of the end-to-end close orchestration process. So from the point of which you're closing your sub ledgers, the general ledger, and then doing all your consolidations, eliminations, and do that whole process, as well as visibility over the top with our task management to sort of see where you are. A lot of automation that's part of that, account reconciliation, tax reporting. We have our solution, what's called Freeform, which again, it may be going back a few years or decades of folks that might be familiar with Essbase. So it's very much similar to Essbase, where you can sort of ideate and create a cube of data. It doesn't have to be financial data. It can be what you want, instant term freeform, and report off of that. It's great because it provides this integrated value chain across different business processes in your team. So think of your CAO, your revenue officer, all the different offices that fall under the CFO. You're creating a value chain so everyone can sort of manage their data discreetly, and then at some point they can share it to have a consolidated view when they're ready. And from that point on, then they can do their plans, their forecasting, their budgeting, account recs, anything they need to do to manage their business. But again, it's on that single platform. Again, what's great about it is it's very much a start from anywhere approach. So again, we find that our customers are taking their most difficult need. If it is account reconciliation, because that's always manual, then they're starting there. Or in some cases, it's more about moving their planning and budgeting capabilities off Excel, off of some legacy systems, just to get more visibility, transparency, and using the AI capabilities to help support. When I think of AI, it's all about automation. It's about predicting, and it's about, in some respects, just generating, one respect, generating, narrative context or additional insights into your data that's already there. And those capabilities are built within the platform. They can be leveraged when you're ready, going back to my crawl, walk, run approach.
Yeah. Just to add in there to that, Maurice, I think it just the ease of use of turning some of this stuff on and the crawl, walk, run, like you said, there's a really there's an easy opportunity to leverage some of this stuff for some of the mundane tasks that no one wants to do, which is some of the variance analysis, right? Or just some of the bias analysis that typically you would have to do to at least cut out the looking that you would have to do to figure that out, or diving into, multiple different pools there to be able to really highlight those issues so you can really focus your attention on the things that matter and free your time up elsewhere. I think the other thing too, just hitting off the upskilling, the way I look at it too is when Excel came out, that was like the revolutionary tool, right? The people who could write the macros and pull the pivot tables together, they were like the geniuses in the finance group. When these solutions came out for finance teams, IT was typically the one who was heavily involved. And now that's starting to change over time. And we're seeing, in the best case examples, the CFO is leading it and finance is owning and maintaining the solution, right? Yeah. So it's in their domain when they need to do a different scenario model example, or they need to integrate a different, what if case, they have the capability to configure that in the solution. No different than back in the day when you'd send it to your one finance guy who was the genius that could spin it together. So continuing to upskill on that platform, as you said, Maurice, is the key thing there. And that's where a lot of times there's you hear the theory of upskilling where it's, teach your finance team Python and teach them to be like, data scientists. Not saying you shouldn't, and that's not something they should be looking at, but there's the immediate upskilling that can return a lot of benefit right there, in the form of getting people more exposed to that EPM platform to drive the use cases further. And I think that's where, too, going off of that trend from Gartner, a lot of these deployments can go a lot further into the operational side of planning, and into like the free-form examples where you're talking about, where you can handle a lot of other types of planning and statistical analysis outside of just your normal financial statements and P&L planning. And upskilling is key to that.
Yeah, and the idea that we are very much now a data-driven, process, a data-driven society or organization. So a lot of decisions are now based on data, and you need good data, for that.
Yeah, it's a fascinating time to be in finance overall, right? This is a big movement, and I think the other thing I would add, and we saw this when we were when I did the session at your Oracle SC&H EPM session, was this idea of mindset, skill set, tool set. So mindset, you got to make sure your people have the right mindset, or they're not going to go on this transformation journey. They're going to worry. But once you get down to like the next layer, that's when people start to, as we say, slow walk it, right? They're not sure where it's going. And so they're going to not necessarily be bought in. And I think, Thomas, that hits on the vision piece that you talked about. So getting your group aligned about why you're doing it and what you're doing, and then the skill sets, both teaching them some of the data side so they understand how to deploy those tools, but also the success skills like collaboration, strategic thinking, so they can use the data to be better advisors, gives them comfort that they're not getting automated away, and you're going to get a bigger buy-in to your whole transformation journey. So I think that's another thing that we've learned as we've worked with lots of people, and certainly we're around to help upskill if you need it with a lot of tools and programs. But I think that's the magic of, you saw 3,000 people there all trying to move quickly in a faster pace of transformation. That's what I saw at the summit for sure, and at your session actually in Reston. So. Yeah. Final word, any quick takeaways or advice you'd give to our audience out there? I'll start with you, Thomas, and then go to you, Maurice.
Oh, man. I think just to kind of synthesize everything that we hit, I think and this was actually some of the themes that came out of the live polling that we did with around 250 people that were in our session, is the biggest opportunity to reassess and fit and chart your path forward for finance is to take a step back and really look at their finance tech stack across their ERP, EPM, and the related data solutions that sit around that. Really focus on those three key areas. Try to figure out where the challenges are in there. I think that's where there was the session actually that you were on. I can't remember the other gentleman that was there with you, but it was the question that you should ask your teams, which is, wouldn't it be nice if, and I hate it when.
Yeah.
To ask that question in the context of your finance tech stack to figure out what problem can we solve, what group maybe is not getting the financial information or support they need from us, where can we refocus our efforts and potentially not even having to implement a whole new solution. Could we just look at the platform we have and extend it further and deeper into other use cases within the organization?
Yeah. All right, Maurice, last word, and then we'll wrap it up.
It's sort of that growth mindset that comes to mind. I mean, if I were to summarize, last week's activities, it's all about being, having a growth mindset. I find that some of the most compelling and interesting customers I talk to are always ideating, always thinking about what's next, and always sort of not settled in sort of what they're currently using or planning, but always looking to do better or looking to expand in those capabilities. Great example, as I mentioned, the one customer, life science customer, that turned on AI and had it, started working, ideating with it, inside of an hour. There are other customers that actually took the plunge and started to develop AI capabilities sort of as a side project and was using it and said, hey, we own EPM. What can you guys do for us? And we're able to model, provide those exact same predictive models, obviously at a fraction of the cost, because they already have the platform, they're already using those capabilities already there, versus what they're paying for support and managing and maintaining a separate, essentially, build from scratch system. I think, again, it's always those, the finance offices and organizations that are excelling are the ones that continuously look to take advantage of these capabilities and see what they can do better on the next wave of the projects.
Yeah. Curiosity, growth mindset, all those points that you made are spot on, and those are differentiators. So with that, I think we're going to wrap up this great conversation. Maurice and Thomas, thank you guys very much. You can follow them on LinkedIn, Maurice Claggett and Thomas Hood. And then come back and join me on Future Ready Lives on LinkedIn the first and third Tuesday of each month at noon Eastern. Thanks again, guys, for being on here with me. And to the audience, we'll see you next week, next episode.
Awesome. It was a pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.